Hello, ladies and gentlemen, good people of planet Earth. This is Jed from Your Guitar Academy. Today we're going to be looking at Black Dog by Led Zeppelin. Okay, so the first main riff is this one. So here we're in the key of A. It's 5th fret on the guitar, so it's like your first box position. What's going on? It's kind of blues, I suppose. Well, no, it's blues, but we've also got this major 7 note that's in this first riff. And then we're also going to jump up to the second box shape. So in fact, it's like some weird inverted blues scale. So there's no blue note, but we do have the major 7. I don't know if this scale has a name, but this is what it would be. We'll call it the page scale. Right, so here's how you play the first riff. So here's the first part. So we're starting on the 7th fret of the A string, and we're climbing up the D string from the 5th fret chromatically. So that's 5, 6, 7. Then we return to that first note, so 7th fret on the A string. Then we're jumping from there to the 5th fret on the G string. We're doing a slight bend on that and then hitting the root note on the D string, and that's the 7th fret. So then we move into the second box position. So the way I do that is I'm putting my index finger on the 7th fret of the G string. We're doing a hammer-on from 7 to 9. Then we're jumping back to the first box position. And that's a hammer-on and a pull-off, so 5th fret to 7th fret. Then we hit the root note twice on the D string. Then we go back to that minor third, and then hit the root note again. So that's... A little bit slower. One more time, even slower. So, in context altogether so far, we have... Then the next part sounds like this. What we're doing here is 5th fret on the D string once, then we hit the root note twice, that's 7th fret on the D string. Then we do 5 and 7 on the A string, then 3 and 5 on the A string, and then we play this A5 chord twice. Now I'm playing it with the root note on the G string, so it's an open A string, then you've got 2nd fret on the D string, and then 2nd fret on the G string. And I just play that chord with my index finger, and I'm able to mute the B string like that. So that whole riff again in its entirety. So there's a lot of interesting things that happen in this tune. It's slightly strange structurally and what's happening with the timing. The way I think about this first riff is the first part of it is a pickup. And I feel like that's kind of where the drums come into this 4/4 beat. So you got... So that root note on the D string, the 7th fret, is where you can think of the drums starting that 4/4 beat. Have I looped that? Yeah. So I'm going to use that as an example. So if I go like this. That's the sound of the riff over that 4/4 beat. I'll play that one more time for you. So then there's a vocal break there. Robert Plant sings, "Hey mama said the way you move, gonna make you shake, gonna make you groove." and then that comes back in. So there's this whole kind of call and response between the vocal and that guitar riff. The next part that comes in, I suppose we could think of it as a bridge. And this links up again into the first riff. So let me play the bridge for you. So we've got... And also that's then going to link into the third riff. So let me show you the bridge. So here we're going to drop down. It kind of feels like E, the tonality of E. We're in the same position of the guitar, but the riff is this. So what I'm doing here is playing 7th fret on the low E string, climbing up chromatically on the A string, so 5, 6, 7. It's similar to the intro of the first riff. So we climb up chromatically, 5, 6, 7, back to the 7th fret on the low E string. Then we do that jump. We do like a string skip to the 5th fret of the D string. And then we hit the 7th fret on the A string. And that idea repeats itself almost 4 times. The 4th time, it's slightly different. So we're going to do this 3 times. The 4th part of this repeating idea, of this bridge riff, is slightly different. And it joins into the first riff, and it's kind of strange, but I'll show you what it does. So we've got 7th fret on the low E string, 5th fret on the A string, 6th fret, 7th fret. Then we play the 5th fret again, and then you could think of it as the first riff starting again. So that would be... So let me play the whole bridge nice and slow going into the first riff. So... I hope that makes sense. The second riff, or the bridge riff, it's happening over this 4/4 beat. The beginning of that riff is like the first riff. It has exactly the same rhythmical pickup. So I'll use this loop that I've made as an example of what it sounds like. So, so that note there, the 7th fret on the A string, is where you can imagine that 4/4 beat starting. Do da 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 ba, right there. Do 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 da. Do da da. So I'm going to do it over this to illuminate the rhythmical idea. So 1, 2. Okay, so we've just looked at the bridge riff, which goes back into the first riff, and then we're going to get this new riff coming in. So I'll play the end of the first riff into this next one. So it goes like this. So here's what we do. So we've just finished the first riff. So we've got this. So we're doing an A power chord. We're jumping to the minor third, so the 3rd fret on the A string. So, and then back to the power chord. And then we have this little... What that is half bend from the 4th fret on the G string, up and back down, and then you do a pull off to the 2nd fret, and then we pluck the 4th fret and the 2nd fret. So far we've got, and then we do this again. So that's 3rd fret on the A string and then the power chord. So we're doing that twice, essentially, is a way you can think about it. So we do power chord, 3rd fret, power chord again, the little lick, then we do the A string, then we do the lick again, then the A string, and then we do this. So what I'm doing there, it's like an A5, but actually I'm just playing the D and the G string, 2nd fret. You could either slide up with your index finger to the 5th fret, I'm playing that's like a C5, or you could do it with, sometimes I do it with my ring finger and my pinky. And then we go back to the A5 chord. Then we have this phrase. So it's very similar. This is the same, this little lick. But then we do the 4th and 2nd fret on the D string. And then this again. Cool, so let me play this riff again in its entirety. So we've got this. So the ending of this riff is very slightly different to the first time that we play it. We're essentially playing it twice, and then the ending the second time is different. It doesn't do this. It ends after we go from the 2nd fret to the 5th fret, and then when we return to the 2nd fret, we hit that chord twice. So let me play the second part of that riff. And then we're back into the vocal and guitar exchange. Just for clarity, I'll play this whole riff again, and I'll play it a bit slower. And then vocals come in. Great, so after that we've got one final riff. I'll play that for you now. Sounds like this. And again, in the structure, that will return to the vocal and guitar call and response. So let's look at how to play this one. So again, we've got this A5 chord. We're going to begin the riff with this. So again, I'm playing that open A string, 2nd fret on the D string, 2nd fret on the G string. And then I'm jumping down to this G note on the low E string just by itself. The way I do that is I'm doing an upstroke. I'm doing an upstroke on the power chord, or the A5, and then a downstroke on the G on the low E string. Actually, sometimes I do this rhythmical thing, because I just feel that with the low E string. It almost is like a pull-off. So it's like do-do-do-bap, do-do-do-do. If you can feel that difference, instead of da-da, it's kind of do-do-do-do-do. It's kind of like a ghost note, like you'd play on a drum, but you do it on the guitar. You can play around with that, see what feels good. So we've gone power chord, that note on the E string, then we go back to the A5, so we have this. And then we revisit that note on the low E string. So we've gone... The picking's the same, so I do upstroke, downstroke, upstroke, downstroke. After that, we have... So we're going to play the A5, play that note on the low E string, return to the A5, and immediately slide up to the 5th fret with that 5 chord. and then return to the second fret. So again, you can slide up or you can play it with like your ring finger and pinky, whatever you find easier. So in context so far, we have this. Then we return to this again. So we do the A5 chord, that G note, the A5 chord, and that G note again. So here's everything so far. And then it's going to end with these stabs of chords. So we have... So this first one is essentially a G chord. Just strumming the D, the G, the B, and the E string. And I've got my fingers on the 3rd fret of the B and the E string. So it's just a G5. And then a normal D chord. So let me put all of that together. That should sound like this. So when we return to the first riff, or the vocal and guitar exchange, after this G and D chord, it's rhythmically interesting and it feels really satisfying to play when you go. They're all pushed. So if you're in doubt about where those are coming in, the best thing to do is revisit the track and just listen to that bit. So the riff transition from... That's the best way to understand that bit. So in regards to the solo in this song, it's happening over this riff. It's happening over that one. It's basically pentatonic of your choosing, A major or A minor, if you want to improvise instead of learning the solo. So I'll just give you a quick example of the kinds of things you could do. That kind of stuff. Thanks very much for tuning into this video. If there are things you're unsure about, best thing to do is to check the write-up, so that will be in the description below. Also revisit the song. I always think that's really important because we're playing music. Music is sound. Go back and listen to the record if there's anything you're unsure about. Otherwise, thanks very much and I'll see you next time.